Assalamu alaikum, adab, good morning, sat shri akal, namaskar. My name is Sayyid Kaswar Abbas. Today, I'm going to talk about United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 6, clean water and sanitation. Ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Illustration and current situation. Fresh water in sufficient quantity and quality is essential for all aspects of life and sustainable development. The human rights to water and sanitation are widely recognized by member states. Water resources are embedded in all forms of development. For example, food security, health promotion, and poverty reduction, in sustaining economic growth in agriculture, industry and energy generation, and maintaining healthy ecosystem. As global population grows, so does the demand for water, which depletes natural resources and damages the environment in many places. Solutions include protecting carbon sinks such as oceans and wetlands, adopting climate smart agriculture techniques, and increasing the safe reuse of wastewater. Water is our most precious resource. We must use it more responsibly. We must balance all society's water needs while ensuring the poorest people don't get left behind. As per 2017 reports, 2.2 billion people lack safely managed drinking water, and 4.2 billion people lack safely managed sanitation. Water scarcity could displace 700 million people by 2030. As per 2016 reports, 2 in 5 healthcare facilities worldwide have no soap and water or alcohol based hand rub. COVID implications arise from the fact that 3 billion people worldwide lack basic hand washing facilities at home, most effective method for COVID prevention. Some countries experience a funding gap of 61% for achieving water and sanitation targets. Islamic perspective. The Holy Quran and Hadith teach its followers principles of social justice and equity, which extends into the practice of preserving Earth's natural resources, particularly water conservation. According to Islam, water is community resource and is a right for all humankind. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam highlights this in the following hadith. Muslims have common share in three things: grass, pasture, water, and fire, that is fuel. The Holy Quran has set down the foundation of water conservation and demand management by making it known to humankind that Earth's water resources are finite in verse 23-18 of Surah Al-Mu'min. And we sent down from the sky water, that is rain, in due measure, and we gave it lodging in the earth, and verily we are able to take it away. Furthermore, God has instructed humankind not to be wasteful in the following verse: O children of Adam, eat and drink, but waste not by excess. For God loveth not the wasters. Surah Araf, the heights, ayah 7-31. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, exemplifies the logical approach to sustainable water use through the manner in which he performed the ritual ablution. The principle of water conservation is beautifully illustrated by the rule which says that while making ablutions, wudu, we should be abstemious in the use of water, even if we have a river at our disposal. Do not waste even if performing ablution on the bank of a fast flowing large river. Prophet Muhammad himself would perform ablution with just one mud of water, equivalent to two-thirds of a liter, and take bath with one sa of water, equivalent to around 3 liters in modern volume measurements. As per Islamic law, there is a responsibility placed on upstream farms to be considerate to downstream users. A farm beside a stream is forbidden to monopolize its water. After withholding a reasonable amount of water for his crops, the farmer must release the rest to those downstream. Furthermore, if the water is insufficient for all the farms along the stream, the needs of older farms are to be satisfied before the newer farm is permitted to irrigate. This reflects the emphasis placed by Islam on sustainable utilization of water. United Nations targets on SDG 6. By 2030, following targets are planned to be achieved. A. Achieve universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water for all. B. Achieve access to adequate and equitable sanitation and hygiene for all, and end open defecation, paying special attention to the needs of women and girls and those in vulnerable situations. C. Improve water quality by reducing pollution and eliminate dumping and minimize release of hazardous chemicals and materials. Halving the proportion of untreated wastewater and substantially increasing recycling and safe reuse globally. Substantially increase water use efficiency across all sectors and ensure sustainable withdrawals and supply of fresh water to address water scarcity and substantially reduce the number of people suffering from water scarcity. Implement integrated water resource management at all levels, including through transboundary cooperation as appropriate. Protect and restore water-related ecosystems, including mountains, forests, wetlands, rivers, aquifers, and lakes. Expand international cooperation and capacity building support to developing countries in water and sanitation related activities and programs, including water harvesting, desalination, water efficiency, wastewater treatment, recycling, and reuse technologies. Support and strengthen the participation of local communities in improving water and sanitation management, enabling and accelerating progress. The water sector is struggling to improve water resources management and to increase the coverage and quality of water and sanitation services. Some of the many challenges are practical actions that provide the visible side of water, such as installing taps and toilets, building reservoirs, drilling boreholes, and treating and reusing recycling wastewater. However, some actions are much less visible. They are far more challenging and highly complex, and yet they underpin the visible side of water. They include the need for good water governance, which is crucial for implementing integrated water resource management, resolving the challenges of sharing water and benefit it provides across national boundaries, and tackling the thorny issue of inequality, where the rich have better water services than poor, and wealthy landowners control water, which reduces the productivity of smallholders. SDG 17, strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development, offers framework for enabling and accelerating progress in all aspects of SDG 6, including the challenging issue of integrated water resource management (IWRM) and eliminating inequalities, which will be essential for achieving SDG 6 and leaving no one behind. Means of implementation for water and sanitation include governance, finance, capacity development, and data acquisition and monitoring. These are interlinked, and effective policies in each activity are mutually reinforcing. They are all essential elements in meeting SDG 6 targets. Governance. Good water governance provides the political, institutional, and administrative rules, practices, and processes for taking decisions and implementing them. Government has responsibility for many governance functions, such as formulating policy, developing legal frameworks, planning, coordination, funding and financing, capacity development, data acquisition and monitoring, and regulation. However, governance is increasingly moving beyond government and taking account of cooperation with other stakeholders, including the private sector. Good water governance comprises many elements, but it principally includes effective, responsive, and accountable state institutions that respond to change, openness, and transparency, providing stakeholders with information and giving citizens and communities a say and role in decision making. Integrated Water Resource Management, IWRM. Good water governance is key to implementing IWRN. As pressure on water resources has increased over past 25 years, the demand for greater cooperation across the water sector has grown. The concept of IWRM has gradually been accepted and is embedded in 2030 Agenda Target 6.5. IWRM defines the enabling environment for integration and need for a strong institutional framework, including participation. The need for management instruments for effectively managing water resources, including those shared across national boundaries, and financing requirements for water resources development and management. Implementing IWRM at the transboundary level provides further justification for the critical need to strengthen cooperation over shared water resources and the benefits they provide. Countries need to cooperate to ensure the transboundary rivers, lakes, and aquifers are managed in an equitable and sustainable manner. Eliminating inequalities. Good water governance underpins the elimination of inequalities. Equal access to sufficient, safe, and affordable water, and adequate and equitable sanitation and hygiene can mean the difference between prosperity and poverty, well being and ill health, and even living and dying. Only 62% of people in LDCs, least developed countries, have access to basic drinking water service compared to 89% of the global population. The disparity in basic sanitation services is even greater, where coverage in least developed countries, LDCs, that is 32%, is less than half the global coverage, that is 68%. Only 27% of the population in least developed countries had a basic hand washing facility at home. There are marked differences between fragile and non fragile states, and rural communities lag behind those in the urban sector. Urban population are growing rapidly, and slums can proliferate when growth is not well managed. Finance. Current financial resources are inadequate to achieve SDG 6. The World Bank estimated the annual capital cost of meeting SDG Target 6.1 and 6.2 as 114 billion US dollars per year. This does not include other SDG 6 targets. Nor does it include operation and maintenance, monitoring, institutional support, and sector strengthening the human resources. Investment in WASH, that is water sanitation and hygiene, bring social and environmental benefits, as do investments in other water and water using sectors. Estimates of the annual cost of damage from flooding, inadequate wash and water scarcity amount to 500 billion US dollars. This figure would be much higher if environmental cost could be valued and considered. The benefits of investing in water scarcity should reduce the costs and promote growth, which can then provide revenue supporting further investment and thus creating a virtuous circle. Development partners in the wash sector identified three financial challenges. One, lack of finance for strengthening the enabling environment and service delivery. Two, untapped use of repayable finance, including microfinance and blended finance. Three, resources inadequately targeted towards the poor and vulnerable who are unable to access services. Bridging the finance gap necessitates improving the efficiency of existing financial resources while increasing innovative sources of financing such as commercial and blended finance, including the private sector. An enabling environment is therefore needed that considers the specialties of water investments, that is, large upfront capital needs, long term or associated risk management. ODA, official development assistance, is crucial, but it needs targeting where it can be most effective and used to catalyze other funding resources. Capacity development. Strong formal and informal institutions and human resources underpin good water governance. However, an acute lack of capacity is constraining water resources development and management in all its facets across most developing countries, particularly in sub Saharan Africa and South and Southeastern Asia. Human resources shortages are reportedly in all key areas including agriculture and irrigated farming, water related risk management, water and sanitation services, wastewater treatment, recycling and reuse technologies, and desalination. This is not a new phenomenon and has been a leading concern and constraint on water related development for many decades. Several countries are now producing national capacity developing strategies for the water sector. However, the big challenge is implementation. There are means of rapidly increasing vocational skills to meet specific shortages using short term programs of 2 to 4 years in length. But it takes many years to strengthen institutional capacity with a cadre of experienced and effective professionals and technicians that can plan and enable progress towards SDG 6. The answer lies in long term commitment and support for knowledge and capacity development, data acquisition and monitoring. Data underpin the governance element of accountability, transparency, and participation. They enable progress to be monitored and service providers, governments, and development partners to be held accountable. Many countries lack the financial and institutional and human resources to acquire and analyze data to support governance. Less than half of the member states have comparable data available on progress towards meeting each of the global SDG 6 targets. Stakeholders have no basis for challenging factually incorrect or biased positions without available data. Reliable, consistent, and whenever possible, disaggregated data are essential to stimulate political commitment, inform policy making and decision making, and trigger well placed investments towards health, environment, and economic gains. Data acquisition and monitoring requires political commitment to transparency that includes efforts related to accessibility and sharing of data, increased utilization of latest Earth observations, citizen science and private sector data should be incorporated into data monitoring systems at all levels to complement existing data collection efforts. Beyond Sustainable Development Goal 6, water and society. Water is an essential ingredient in agriculture and food production. It is intrinsic to ending hunger, achieving food security, improving nutrition, and promoting sustainable agriculture. Most water withdrawals are in the agriculture sector. Therefore, water shortages and scarcity can seriously affect agriculture and food production, particularly in vulnerable developing countries, where the demand for food is increasing and undernutrition is endemic. World hunger is rising again now, following a prolonged period of decline as more people suffer food insecurity. This is especially noticeable in sub Saharan Africa, which experiences the highest level of food security, affecting almost 30% of the population. Conflict and fragility have also worsened food security and are often compounded by floods and droughts, both of which can devastate crops and harvests. Water and environment. Much of the pollution affecting oceans and coastal zones comes from human activities and poorly managed land use practices. This also applies to solid waste dumped at or near coastal areas, which eventually ends up in the sea. Reducing pollution and minimizing dumping of hazardous material into upstream ecosystems will benefit marine environment and reduce the impact on coastal ecosystems. Climate change has a significant impact on freshwater systems and their management. Most effects due to climate change will be experienced through changes in the hydrological cycle, such as overall water availability, water quality and frequency of extreme weather events, that is, floods and droughts. Water related hazards account for a large part of disaster loss and impact. In 2015, more than 1.6 million people died and 5.5 billion people affected in internationally reported natural hazards. Water related hazards accounted for 62% of the deaths and 96% of people affected and 75% of total damage costs amounting to 2.5 trillion US dollars. While foods are immediate and visible and receive much attention, droughts are a creeping phenomena like climate change. They contribute to overall water scarcity, stress water supplies, and affect agriculture and aquatic ecosystems. Proactive drought policies and drought risk management can build greater societal resilience to the effects of drought and reduce the need for an emergency response. But this requires a fundamental shift in the way droughts are perceived and managed. Overall climate change and its exacerbation of floods and droughts necessitates a more adaptable approach to water management for countries and societies to be able to cope with increasing uncertainty. Water and economy. Economic growth is still the priority for most countries, SDGs cannot be met without growth, which tends to overshadow other issues. But unsustainable use of water and land resources will not help to meet these targets. Climate change is focusing minds on sustainability and the fact that natural resources of future generations are being consumed to satisfy the economic demands of today. Although water is widely accepted as being important to economic growth, recent studies have helped to quantify and confirm this relationship. However, determining how water related investments affect growth is fraught with difficulties because of the many pathways that lead to growth and the pervasive way in which water is an input into so many economic activities. The findings confirm that water insecurity acts as a major constraint to global economic growth. About 1.4 billion livelihoods globally are directly dependent on water, including jobs in the food and beverage industry, the energy industry, and the water industry. Millions of smallholder farmers in developing countries rely on water for irrigation and livestock farming for their livelihoods. Agriculture is a major industry, employing about 30% of global workforce. Agriculture is treated like any other industrial business in developed countries. Only 1.5% of the nation's workforce is employed in agriculture in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. But the wider agri food industry, which relies on agriculture for its raw material, employs 14% of the nation's workforce and is worth 145 billion US dollars to the national economy. However, uncertainty over future waste supplies for agriculture is leading to greater uncertainty among agri food businesses and may act as a disincentive to future growth and investment. These issues are reflected across many similar industrialized countries. Water and energy are closely associated. Wash services, agriculture, and industry all need energy for pumping water, treating wastewater, and integrating crops and desalination. The energy sector also needs water to cool thermal power plants, provide hydropower, and grow biofuels. A 48% increase in global energy consumption is expected by 2040, above 2012 level, mostly in China, India, Southeast Asia, parts of Africa, Latin America, and Middle East. Energy demands in the water sector are increasing as more farmers exploit groundwater for irrigation, and substantial increases in water treatment are expected in order to meet SDG 6 targets. Most wastewater in developing countries is untreated. If this is to be halved by 2030 to meet SDG 6 targets, substantial amount of additional energy will be needed if traditional methods of treatment are applied. A potential bonus is that energy contained in wastewater is about 5 to 10 times greater than energy needed to treat it. Innovative methods are required to extract and use it. Ladies and gentlemen, this was a very important topic, and I thought to do a good research and present you all the facets of it. I appreciate you all watch my videos, you subscribe my channel, and you share it. Thank you very much. Until we meet next time, and Allah Hafiz.